Hey everybody, it's the Monty'man from Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting. Before we play one of the best of Take 12 Recovery Radio from the year 2015, I wanted to come to you with an urgent plea. Now, a couple times a year, we ask you to donate to help keep us on the air. We are a not-for-profit organization. In other words, we don't get paid here. All the money that we get, anything that comes in donation-wise, is to help keep us on the air, to keep our audio booth intact, to keep our office supplies going, and maintenance of our recording equipment. We have the highest quality of recording equipment, so we can bring you the highest quality in sound for the shows. But listen, we can't do it on our own. And we are at a critical level right now. We have to come up with $3,000 here in this next month to be able to stay on the air. Listen, if you would consider a donation or becoming a Take 12 Recovery Radio sponsor, we would certainly appreciate it. No amount is too small. To donate, simply visit us at take12radio.com. Click, or I should say, scroll to the bottom of the page and click on the donate button. And there it'll show you how you can participate in becoming a Take 12 Radio sponsor financially. Please pray for us because we don't want to go off the air. We're getting ready to celebrate our 16th year in production and 15th year of actually broadcasting the best in recovery talk and positive music. And we have no intentions of going off the air. We are believing in our higher power, our God, that he's going to supply our needs, but we need your help. And so please, if you would do that, go to take12radio.com, slide down to the bottom of the page, click on donate. We would appreciate it more than you know. It means so much to so many. Well, this is a show entitled Outside Issues was the topic with Sandy W. and my sponsor, Bruce H., who has gone home to be with the good Lord here not too long ago, actually. We sure do miss Bruce. But this was a great show. We did some fun in recovery. We did some Take 12 trivia. And then we talked about the issue of outside issues in our 12-step fellowships. So without further ado, here's the show from the best of in 2015.
The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. And now, here are your co-hosts, Sandy W., Bruce H., and the Monty'man.
Oh, yes, welcome aboard. New theme song, new co-host, Sandy W. This is week 3 for Sandy. Woo. Week 3. And by the way, Sandy just celebrated 24 years. 24. The big 2-4.
Yes.
2-4.
Thank you, God.
Yes. Well, and you're pretty emotional about that. Right?
Some reason this year it hit me.
Yeah.
Hit me.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. Oh, you're getting emotional now. Yeah. Well, hey, it's an emotional deal when you think about it.
You bet. And that was a great little story that she told us before we went on air about walking down the street and, and how she felt that morning.
It's that incomprehensible demoralization.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Well, congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
It looks good on you. It looks good on you.
She looks good on all of us. To have her as a friend, and I believe that Sandy is one of the people that we have that fellowship of the Spirit with.
You bet.
And I think that's what binds us together like we never were before. It wasn't that we had this common thing with alcoholism or like on the ship, water's deep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's that fellowship of the Spirit. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Well, welcome to the great reality, everybody, here at Take 12 Radio. Take12radio.com on your internet dial. Our email address is take12radio@comcast.net. Now, Bruce, you don't watch a lot of TV. True?
I watch a lot of news.
Well, you watch a lot of news. Well, if I said Kardashian, would you know who I'm talking about? No. Bruce wouldn't know. You would know, Sandy, right? Kardashian. Well, here's a couple of interesting stories. Khloe, ready to roll on booze-themed talk show after Lamar overdoses. Khloe Kardashian won't let Odom's addiction nightmare derail her project. The show must go on. Lamar Odom's ongoing and very public battles with addiction aren't stopping Khloe Kardashian from moving ahead with her booze-fueled talk show, Cocktails with Khloe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Following delays in production due to Odom's crisis, RadarOnline.com has learned from a network insider that the reality star has assured executives it won't stop her work. Khloe has asked to meet with them this week because they really wanted to make sure that she will be okay with this, said the source. They need to know that they are not wasting all of this money on production only to have her back out at the last minute. But even after several of her close friends dropped dead in recent months due to addiction, plus her husband Odom's drug overdose, and her own sister Courtney's family being destroyed because of booze, the insider says that Khloe said that she is ready to roll on the show that will have her drinking every single day during the show. Khloe basically said that she is not going to stop drinking because Lamar can't handle his SHIT. She told the executives that she is ready to get back to work, and the show is slated to premiere in December. Okay.
More
Kardashian
I don't
news.
know her, so I've not commented on her.
Well, you're very fortunate.
I don't know her either, but
I don't know her either.
I don't want to.
Egads. Cocktails with Khloe. Look for it on your local station.
Yeah.
Have you ever anybody ever put a gun to your head and say, "Here, drink this," when you were out there drinking?
No.
We hear people say that. Well, nobody put a gun to your head, right? Well, escaping the clutches of alcoholism is never easy, and it certainly wasn't for Nicholas, who had to go on antidepressants to cope with the withdrawal symptoms. Yeah. But thanks to the timely help of a Chilean treatment center, he has finally been able to get back to what he does best, being a monkey, alcoholic monkey. Nicholas was abused in captivity by his owners, shopkeepers in the Chilean capital of Santiago. They amused themselves by teaching him to smoke cigarettes and giving him alcohol. They liked to see his reactions when he drank. He became more aggressive, and that made them laugh, said the veterinarian, Nicole Rivera Elberg. Nicholas, whose owners had his fangs removed, was made to drink with a gun to his head often and became addicted.
Oh, that is so sad.
Can you believe that?
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. Today, the small brown monkey who gets camera shy when journalists film him is of about 150 illegally trafficked animals recovering from various forms of abuse at the Primate Rehabilitation Center in Penaflor on the outskirts of Santiago. After going through a rehab program similar to the ones human addicts undergo, he is now in recovery.
I don't know why they do that. I remember a story that was going around. I wished I knew the source of it right now, but that they got a chimpanzee or something of that nature addicted to heroin,
sad.
And then they let him go kick cold turkey, and then they tried to give him drugs again, and he went ballistic. Pretty smart monkey.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
See, but humans, the phenomenon is that we'll go through that, and then we'll allow that to happen again.
Have you heard the theory about Rat Park?
What is Rat Park?
Well,
I don't want to go there. I know that.
Well, there's a theory. Well, and it's actually been tested. And this is, and I'm probably going to get this wrong a little bit. So, listeners, the ones of you that think that this is legitimate and is well, just bear with me here. Okay, So evidently, a team of people investigating addiction to, I believe, heroin, took a rat and put him in a cage, and his feeding, the little bottle with the thing, had heroin in it. And so the rat, there was one with water and there was one with heroin. And the rat went to the one with heroin. And then he went back to the one with heroin constantly. He just kept going back. Now, he was all by himself. Then they did the same thing, but this time they put a whole bunch of rats into the cage, and the rats never went to the heroin. They went to the water. So their conclusion, I'm probably being more simplistic about this than it deserves, but their conclusion was, if you are supported and you're surrounded by a community that cares, we know animals have communities and they care for each other, so forth, that your chances of using or becoming addicted are a lot less than if you're isolated.
Well, that makes sense.
It does, but it doesn't. Because there's a lot of people that were raised in a very supportive, loving community of people, and they still got addicted. And they still used.
But probably in their minds, they were alone.
Perhaps.
Nobody loved them, inferiority complex, whatever.
But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Now, I definitely agree that if you're in recovery, your chances are going to be better if you've got a supportive environment than if you're all by yourself. But as far as actually developing an addiction, if that's due to you don't have anybody around you, I don't know. The title of the article is Everything You Knew About Addiction Was Wrong. And so I don't know if I buy this. I don't know if I buy it. What do you think, Bruce?
I think we do think that way.
I think we do.
That if we're just as long as, because if we have a child and that child starts to mess around with drugs, the first thing we do is come alongside that child and try to support that child. But what happens? Child uses anyway.
Right.
But we think that way.
Yeah.
And we think that's true. I believe, and I'm going to make a bold statement here, that it's all spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it doesn't have anything to do with the physical. And we think that we can straighten that physical part out. And I believe we have to straighten the spiritual part out.
Amen to that. Because otherwise we just remove the substance and then the problem would go away.
Absolutely.
But that's not really the problem.
Absolutely. See, we want to think our problem is our drinking and using.
Yeah.
Now, as huge as that is, and it is huge, we have testimony from all three of us about how big that is.
Right.
The real problem is in our sobriety.
That's right. Yeah, you betcha.
And
you betcha.
Our literature tells us in any 12-step program to keep care of the spiritual, and the mental and the physical will fall in line.
Yeah.
But we want to go. We want to do it the other way. We want to go out and work on our conduct, which isn't a bad deal, is it?
Right.
But that's not going to settle the problem.
Yeah, and therefore the scripture verse, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these other things will be added unto you. So if we're seeking it, and that's why God is in the first part of the steps, not at the end.
And we want to make it the importance that we believe in that physical has to be worked on and kept care of.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
We're responsible.
Yeah.
I'm sure of that.
Well, listen, our topic this week is I'll tell you that later. Our topic this week is outside issues. What are outside issues? Are there outside issues? Are there things that are taboo to talk about within your 12-step support meetings, regardless of what fellowship you're in? And we're going to be talking about that. But we're going to go listen to from our sponsors, and then Cecil has trivia for us, and then we'll go to the topic. Yes, indeedy. So hold on. Go ahead, Sandy.
And I have to correct my mistake last week.
All right, go ahead and tell us now before we go to the break.
Before I am divorced, my husband did not buy a Honda motorcycle. He bought a Victory, and he said I needed to correct that on the air. Okay?
Well, very good.
It is corrected.
Done.
Motorcycle owners.
you.
Motorcycle owners are very particular about.
Boy, they are.
Yeah.
Okay, now
yeah.
we can go on.
All right, don't go away. We'll be right back.
In the time it takes to pour your morning coffee, a child is abused. In the time it takes for you to tie your shoes, a child is intentionally injured. In the time it takes to lock your door, a child is neglected. In the time it takes for you to turn on the evening news, a child is forgotten. And in the time it takes for you to get from morning coffee to evening news, 4 of those children have died. Don't wait. Take action. If you know of or even suspect child abuse, please call 1-800-422-4453. That's 1-800-4-A-CHILD. Or go to www.childhelp.org. Counselors are available 24/7. All calls are confidential. Bring hope. Bring an end to child abuse. This message brought to you by the Foundation for the Prevention and Treatment of Child Abuse.
Hey, you! Yeah, you! It's the Monty'man from Take 12 Recovery Radio. And as a journalist, I get a ton of literature from folks to read every single year. And I simply can't get to everything. But there is one publication I never miss. It's the 12-Step Gazette. This is an award-winning recovery magazine for Philly, South Jersey, and surrounding counties. And is distributed nationwide and can be viewed even on the internet. Rehabs, detoxes, helplines, puzzles, classifieds, columnists, events, an hilarious humor page, and so much more. All found in the 12-Step Gazette. To get your copy of the 12-Step Gazette, visit www.12stepgazette.com today.
Well, zippity-doo-dah-day. This is the month to be thankful, and I'm thankful for Take 12 Trivia.
Well, that's right. Take 12 Trivia this week is brought to you by the 12-Step Gazette. This is their website at 12stepgazette.com. All righty. This week's trivia is peanut trivia. Peanut trivia. Oh, God. If you get it right, you get a bell. If you get it wrong,
I'm just going to say platters and let that go across to all of the answers.
All right. It takes about how many peanuts to make a 12-ounce jar of peanut butter? Here are your choices. How many peanuts for a 12-ounce jar? 540, 1,000, or 2,000?
2,000.
Ditto.
Ditto? Sorry. 540 is actually the answer.
That's crazy. The least amount.
We should challenge him. Okay.
I thought it would have took a lot more than that.
Yeah. How many peanuts are in the standard size Snickers bar? 15, 25, or 35?
15.
I'll go with that, too.
Go with that? You guys are correct. You get a bell. Number 3. The average child will eat how many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches before he or she graduates high school?
That's what my husband eats every day for lunch for 18 years.
Yeah, but he's not average.
I know.
Is it 300, 800, or 1,500?
Good gosh.
18 years. What is it again? What? 300?
300, 800, or 1,500?
800. I think it's 1,500.
1,500.
Okay, Sandy, you get that. Bruce, you're right. It's 1,500.
Well, she said she thought it was that.
Yeah, that doesn't count, though.
That doesn't count.
Oh, boy.
And here's your bonus. 2 of this nation's presidents were peanut farmers. One was Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
Who was the other peanut farmer? Was it Ben Franklin, John Kennedy, or Thomas Jefferson?
The first one.
Ben Franklin?
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson.
Sandy's correct. It was Thomas Jefferson. Yay. Sorry, Bruce.
Hey, Sandy.
Good guess.
That's 2 and 2, which added up make 4.
That's right.
Wow, you're a mathematician.
That's 4. We got all of them. That's it.
Because one got 2 right and the other one got 2 right?
That's right.
Oh,
So we got 4 right.
Yay!
All right. Well, that's it for Take 12 Trivia for this week. All right, we'll be back with the topic outside issues right after this. Addiction is the #1 health threat in our world today. It affects more people than any other malady, and yet the solution to this health crisis gets the least amount of attention. May I introduce to you a media outlet that's doing something about that? KHLT Recovery Broadcasting, home of the Take 12 Recovery radio shows, is the world's only faith-based radio station broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with the solution to the addiction problem. Visit take12radio.com for recovery talk and positive music, and be ready to be set free from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. That's take12radio.com on your internet dial.
As men and women who have recovered from utterly hopeless states of addiction ourselves, we know all too well what it's like to battle addiction daily. We are Origins Recovery Centers. Here at Origins, we have taken that which we have learned along the way, excised anything unhelpful and unnecessary, infused it with the latest medical research and innovative therapeutic methods, and created what we know to be the absolute gold standard in substance abuse treatment. And Origins provides the most preeminent aftercare and relapse prevention program available in the United States. For a free confidential clinical assessment, call toll-free 888-843-8935. That's 888-843-8935. Origins, delivering real solutions for real families.
All right, we have returned, and the topic this week is outside issues. Now, I haven't heard it a lot lately. Actually, in the last few years, I really haven't heard a lot of horn blowing about, well, that's an outside issue. That's an outside issue. I don't know. It seems like we kind of go in waves with things. But there was a time, in my experience, when I heard that a lot. And somebody would bring up something that somebody else in a meeting thought was an outside issue, and the person would interrupt them in the middle of their share and say, that's an outside issue, that doesn't belong here in the meeting, or whatever. So I posed this question on the Take 12 Radio Facebook group. I said, group question, what do you consider an outside issue in 12-step meetings? And so here's some of the answers I got. Mike Y said, talking about other people's issues and defects. Stick to your own. Robert S. said, anything and everything that has nothing to do with the steps and traditions of AA. So he's referring to AA meetings. David S. said, any issue that does not pertain to that group's primary purpose. I thought that was pretty good.
Yep.
Let's see. Paul E., tongue-in-cheek, kind of jokingly said, what about depression in long-term sobriety? And somebody questioned him on that, and he goes, I know, it was a trick question. Christopher Y. said, none. There are no rules in these meetings. I thought that was an interesting response, because I wasn't suggesting that. I was just saying, what do you consider an outside issue?
Right.
But isn't it interesting how we'll kind of, get our defenses up? There's no rules, But I understand his heart. I appreciate that. Andrew H. said, in a nutshell, keeping your opinions and nose out of things that do not concern us. Rather, we keep our side of the street clean, thus growing in the spirit. Marco R. said, it's hard for me to say, but I think all issues, including mental health issues and religion and psychology, were all tied together to create the big book. He's actually right about that. Even politics, maybe to a little extent. I don't think we should talk extensively at an AA meeting about politics and such, but they can be briefly mentioned without fear of judgment from other people. not to sound arrogant, but I earned my seat in Alcoholics Anonymous, and everyone has a story to tell and should not be shunned by everyone else, even when we have an opinion of our own. We are all entitled to our opinions, even though they may be wrong a lot of the time. But I suspect that if I'm going by the big book, the Bible and the Holy Spirit inside of me, I won't be wrong and will be on the right and only truthful side anyways. And that's my 2 cents. I get passionate about this subject. Joe T said, what sports team to root for, political issues, religious affiliation, other people using other people's names, money, property, or prestige. So those were just some of the responses to that. My personal favorite was David S.'s, any issue that does not pertain to that group's primary purpose. I kind of like that one.
Yep, I love that one.
Yeah. So, I don't know about you guys, but I've heard a couple of things, from people. I remember sitting in a meeting one time, and somebody was specific about who their higher power was, and somebody else spoke up and said, that doesn't belong in this meeting. That's an outside issue. I thought, is it? If it pertains to that person's recovery, is it an outside issue? I think sometimes we complain because it makes us feel uncomfortable, and it may not be an outside issue at all. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Who wants to take a stab at it?
I used to think talking about other people and that sort of thing was bad in a meeting until I stopped and just started listening, and then that gave me a real good idea where that person was at if they weren't able to talk about their own stuff and try to at least use the forum
right
to somebody else's advantage.
Yeah.
I think the thing I forget more than anything is that it's an altruistic movement, and I'm not there for myself. I'm there for other people to set my stuff aside, as best I can and put them first.
But that took a while for you to come to an understanding of that, true?
Yeah, and even more to be able to do it.
Sure.
I mean, I can't do it. We're the darn, And I really think the traditions have 2 gates on them, okay? The first tradition for unity and the last tradition for anonymity. And the anonymity is willing to put our stuff aside for the betterment of the group.
Right.
That's how they're trying to use that.
Yes, it
phrase.
is. Yes.
So they got gates on the traditions to hold it together, if you will. And all of those things come together. Yeah, that's why I can't talk without my hands.
Sorry, guys, you can't see him over here twisting and.
So I forget that, and it's hard for me to do that. You know what I mean? And so I want to say things, and it holds people hostage. You know what I mean? And I see that a lot. So we could talk about any of those things or use any of those, but I don't think that's what the founders were trying to do. That's why I like the one the third one also, where it doesn't pertain to the group.
Right.
Somebody comes in there and they're not well, and they just got there, and that newcomers, that's the one you want to hear and listen to, talk to. They don't know how or what to say. They might say anything or talk about anybody.
Yeah, they don't know anybody.
Oh, they're hurting.
And to publicly, correct somebody, particularly in a harsh manner, when they're new, that isn't helpful.
No, wait till after the meeting and
pull them aside and be gentle, and you don't have to pat them on the butt, but come on.
See, I think the person that says something to him, there's something happening with them.
Yeah.
And if we listen to him or her, we'll understand maybe where they're coming from. But that's hard to do.
It is.
See, we want to jump in the mess because that's where we operate real well.
Sandy?
Well, I come in here with these very intelligent gentlemen, and
Oh, please.
and I was leery of coming back on this show, but since I beat Bruce at one of the quiz questions last week, I'm feeling pretty cocky. Anyway, I had to do some looking up, and I went into the tradition 10, and it was really interesting to read that. I don't know how long it's been since I read it, but they mentioned politics, religion, and reform, and they talked about a group called the Washingtonian Society.
Yes.
And that they were 100 years ago, and they were doing real well, but they started the thing with abolition, and it destroyed them.
Right.
But the statement that I liked the most was it says survival of AA is more important than the weight we could throw back on any other cause. And I know this is more like media and whatever, but it's kind of like coming into a meeting and saying, if Donald Trump gets elected president, I'm going to drink. You don't need to have a problem about religion or politics or whatever and not talk about it, but you need to talk about the solution and how you're feeling. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, whatever it is that's probably not a real good topic, you could just start talking about how something is making you feel and you're afraid it's going to run you right off the cliff. But it was interesting to read that.
Do you think, particularly for people, we need to kind of give the newcomer some slack.
Right.
You don't want to give them too much, because then they'll think it's all about them, right? I mean, that's the way I was. Oh, am. After, and this goes back to healthy sponsorship.
Right.
Is your sponsor familiar with these steps? Have they had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps? Do they grasp this thing the way the book lines it out? And if they do, are they working with people? And are they making the approach? And so instead of complaining about somebody bringing up an outside issue as new, why don't you go offer your assistance as their sponsor and work with them and teach them and guide them? But here's the deal. We are lacking in those kind of people. There's a huge percentage of people that don't have sponsors, and the ones they do have are simply phone numbers. Right. And so we go uneducated, and so there are some folks that have been around a long time, but they have such a newcomer mentality because no one's ever worked with them, or they've never been willing to surrender to allow anybody to work with them, and even to the point where when they do know better, because you can sit in these meetings for years and never have a sponsor and nobody ever work with you, but common sense will kind of start to teach you what the lingo is,
right?
And you're gonna catch on, and you're gonna know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, but there are some people with co-occurring mental health issues that simply won't get that, and they may say, well, if Donald Trump gets elected president, I'm going to drink, where you and I might say, if certain individuals get elected as president, I may drink over that, and I'm really concerned about it. Well, you're not mentioning any names, but that's wisdom, and that's balance and stuff. And some people just don't have that. Right. So do we crucify them publicly?
No.
Do we try and work with them and talk with them? And what about what the one guy said? There's no rules in these meetings. I kind of chuckle at that, really. You walk in waving a gun, you're going to see some rules being enforced. You walk in naked, someone's going to probably talk to you. There's no requirement for membership, but we do have some basic common decency guidelines that we need to follow by in a meeting.
Yeah, and there is a requirement that, a desire to
stop drinking. Yeah, or whatever that fellowship may be. And so, okay, what about somebody that says, talks about their electric bill and their poverty level, and I'm going through this stuff, and it's just, my power's getting shut off next week. I mean, I heard a lady that lives in Jefferson or Scioto or something several years ago. I mean, she was in a world of hurt financially. I mean, it was just taking her down. And somebody said, that's all outside issues. And I'm like, is it?
No.
I don't think it is.
No, that's your life.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. People that come in are people that, even with some time, and they're in these positions, and they need that fellowship and be able to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
You see? And I used to think that is what people were doing when I said they take me hostage. Okay? Because that's such a profound thing in their life. They'll talk about it over and over and over. We have a young girl in our fellowship that does that with her family life. And she talks about that, constantly. And I call it taking us hostage. We're going to be take hostage. We just heard about this yesterday, and we're going to hear about it clean into next week.
Right.
You see?
Well, but hopefully somebody will take the initiative, like the one that's got all the financial problems. Somebody that hears that and has gone through it might be able to stop this lady on the way out the door and say, look, I had that happen to me, and this is what I did. You can go to this organization, and they can work some stuff out with you.
Right.
I mean, it gives. You're talking about gut-wrenching stuff that could cause you to really go out the door and not come back. But if you say it out loud, then there should be somebody around that's going to give you a nudge in the right direction to try to, work it out.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly where I'm going with this. People do that. That would be a wonderful thing, you see, and that would show that they care. They listen to this person. But what do we do? And this is what I do too. I'm not saying other people. I'm saying me. What I want to do is either say something about that's an outside issue. I mean, that's what we're talking about. But most of the time, what I want to do is give a response. Like, my response is going to be beneficial to these people. Shape. And that's how I think the program has become something other than looking for a higher power.
Right.
It's become meeting dependent.
You mean the fellowship?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fellowship's become more meeting dependent than, or more man-centered than God-centered.
And let me make the statement is that meetings have a purpose, and they're huge, and I go to them, and I participate in them, but it's not my solution.
Right.
By any means or source.
Right.
Okay?
But it should be a place where you can hear the solution from someone.
Right.
But I'm like Sandy. I mean, somebody, if that's one-on-one. That's exactly what the book is talking about. You're over there trying to help. You're over there on some level of altruism.
Yeah.
It's not about a selfish need. And if it is, you can correct that. But we do these things in meetings, and we think that we're doing something. I think I'm going to say something that is going to improve somebody's life.
Well, you know what? It may actually harm them. I mean, you don't really, know sometimes.
There's been a couple of occasions, even in the women's meeting, where women have started talking about being abused and stuff. And I was at a meeting early on when some woman was talking about her dad or whoever had abused her when she was young. And one of the old timers took her aside later and said, you need to get a sponsor, and you need to talk about this kind of thing with a sponsor one-on-one. And, I don't know. I'm just saying that there are things that make other people uncomfortable. And it's not actually an issue of whether it's an outside issue or maybe I should stop now because I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I think what I hear you saying is if we tell somebody, this is why you need to get somebody you can work with,
right,
is not because we don't want to hear it as much as you just sharing it in the meeting isn't really going to help you.
Right.
But working with this other person, then you guys can sit down and work out a solution and things in your life can change. But just coming to a meeting every day, sharing the same old thing, the same old problem, you're just spinning your wheels.
We expect this newcomer to understand what a general way is like, and they can't.
Right. We assume
they're coming
they do.
in there just full of this thing. So somebody should take them aside. Somebody else that feels that they understand can make the approach and say, me too.
Yeah.
See?
Right.
And
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
they'll
I
get
get it.
this
Yeah.
thread of identification, and they'll go to work with one another, and they'll learn to help one another. But if that's all they do, and that's all we do on the other side is what I was saying I do, then are we really functioning as a well group?
Yeah. And how often do you see that? Somebody getting up and going to a newcomer after a meeting. And
Not often.
You don't see it
Not often.
very often at all.
No.
And I think that's the biggest thing that helped me in the beginning was, I didn't want to be around women, but I finally had a woman say to me, that's what happened to me. And we went out to coffee and I just and it wasn't like a meeting. We prayed even.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to pray.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything I wanted to say to God because he hated me. But we prayed.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit of that door opening a little bit wider, but you don't see people
making the approach.
Making the approach very much.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's say somebody. Well, let me put it this way. I like it when they have, or they used to. I don't know if they do anymore. But I remember a time when they actually had, for lack of a better term, training classes. They actually did some things, sometimes at the service conventions, for people that were chairing meetings or people to be GSRs, general service reps, things like that. They actually had classes. They had classes on sponsorship. And they would help a person understand how to chair a meeting, and if the meeting starts to get away from the topic, how to reel people back in a kind and courteous manner. Right. And not necessarily putting a buzzer on the desk and, time's up, but how to verbalize it in a way that was palatable for the person. And because I've sat in meetings where a person will just go down a rabbit trail. You want to talk about outside issues? They're talking about, the size tires on their car, from everything from that to their military background, and I'm like, I'm looking at the chairperson like, reel this person back in, but they don't know how,
right?
Because that's uncomfortable. I don't want to stop him. I might offend him, and all that kind of thing. Some people get offended all day long.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you
anything.
do. But don't you think that maybe it would be a good idea for people that are actually going to be chairing a meeting to learn a little bit more on how to do that? But if we just go with, like the one guy said, there's no rules in these meetings, that's kind of irresponsible, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, isn't that what we're doing? Is we're telling people that this is all right to do. If you've got 90 days and that's all you have and you haven't done a thing, you can come up here and sit and chair a meeting. We want you to. See, it's good service work. And they think it's service work to stay sober.
Right.
It's just good service work.
Right.
It's learning not to be so darn selfish, to give something of yourself. That's all it's for.
Right.
Okay? So they get up there and they know nothing about it, and it just goes off sideways. And then we want to complain about it.
Yeah. And we haven't made the approach to help teach the person how to do it, but we're complaining.
It would be nice if we had places to go or workshops that we get people to. But see, we don't think we have to go to workshops because we have something to give to the alcoholic who still suffers if we've got one day clean.
Yeah. That's our mentality.
That's what we're telling people.
We are telling people that. We are telling people that. Now you may have you may have something to give. I mean,
you bet.
Yeah. But you're really young right now. I mean, I can't, I can go to one aviation class, and sit there and open the ground school book, right? And I'm going to have more experience in that class in one day than you have never going to it. That's just common sense. Mm-hmm. And you say, well, what about wind factor A? And I can say, well, on page 32, wind factor A says this about, this part of the plane. And I'll know that. Should I be teaching a class on aviation at this point?
Well,
no.
That's true. But the point I think that I'm trying to make here is that if a person comes in, and all they've got is one day, and we want to tell them that they have something to offer, or we want to tell them they can chair a meeting, or we want to do this or do that, we're doing it because it sounds good and it appeals to the nature, to be wanted and those kind of things. And we're doing it on a group level. And I'm not saying it's bad. It's the way we do it and the way we frame it. We put it in recovery. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? These are the kind of things that we should be doing where we can gain their confidence to tell them about recovery. Do we have something that you want?
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't think of people that way,
Right.
I sure didn't. I thought the group was a bunch of dummies. Because I was just all about me. So the point again that I'm trying to make is that we're feeding this monster, and then we want to complain about it. You know what I mean? We're telling them that it's something because it appeals to the ear gate. It sounds good,
right?
We would like to have some of that.
Yeah,
stroke me some more.
Well, and it feels good for us to see somebody's face light up when we say, you know what? Why don't you start pouring the coffee? Here, I'll teach you how to do it. And they go, wow, I'm needed. And that makes us feel good, that they feel good.
That's exactly what I'm talking
about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And
like you said, it's not a bad thing.
It's
not a bad thing.
And it's because it goes sour because of what Sandy is saying. Mm-hmm. We don't see people making the approach and building on those sort of service work things.
Right.
Service work's not a bad thing, for crying out loud. It'll keep you sober for the day, won't it?
This brings back a memory of early on when I was going to the morning meeting, and I had probably 35, 40 days.
The one that was upstairs?
Yep.
Yeah, I used to call it the no BS meeting because people that were BSers didn't get up that early.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
it.
it.
That was an awesome meeting.
That was me.
That was an awesome meeting.
And they took a group conscience one morning. There was usually 6 or 7 of us that,
Right.
They took a group conscience and said that I could chair the meeting. And old Betty got back from vacation that day and came in. And she just started screaming. I mean, I love her to death, but she embarrassed me. What the? Are you doing chairing a meeting? You don't have 90 days. Get off behind that desk. And so there are rules that aren't rules that you need to abide by. And we would be good with a training session. I know they've had some for sponsorship over the years, but I've never never seen anything for chairing.
Yeah, and I think we do these kind of things, but then years go by before we do another one.
Well, and if you get up there at 90 days and chair a meeting, and you get 24 years of sobriety and you're still chairing meetings and you're doing the same thing that you did at 90 days because you've never learned anything in the meantime.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
You bet. Interesting stuff. I just find it interesting, though. It comes back to if we're correcting people publicly in a meeting, what's our motivation here? Are we trying to be helpful, or are we uncomfortable with what they're sharing?
Could be both.
Could be a little both. Mm-hmm. I think it comes back to that question I talked about the other day. That we have to ask ourselves before we act. Based on my past experience, my current circumstances, and my future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing to do? Ask yourself what's wise, not what's right.
Yeah, because I don't
Not
think,
what the group conscience is, what's wise.
I don't think what Betty did was so wrong, but I think what Betty did, the way Betty did what she did was wrong.
Right, I agree.
That is
But that was just Betty.
Oh, the
all.
deliverance. The
But
deliverance of it.
See,
Yeah.
and nobody wanted to correct her either. You say, well, who would? Because she was a tyrant,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So,
Sometimes I miss that.
well, the strong people like Ed, you know what I mean? He was strong and quiet, and yet when he worked one-on-one, he was a mild man.
Yeah.
He might have
Sure.
said some harsh things to you, but he was a mild man, and you
Right.
knew that once he.
You knew he loved you.
Yeah.
Same with
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Same
But
with
he,
Betty.
I mean, he's sitting up there smoking, and the smoke just barreling off of him, you know. And hey, well, if you can't get over it, then you better just, you know, if
Don't
you're
let
still
the
thinking
door
about
hit
it.
you in the ass.
Yeah, other people can drink us. You just have to get over it. And harsh, you know, big man.
Oh man! Well, I remember he when I first met him, I thought this is somebody that I'll never be friends with. It's just impossible. It's never going to happen, you know. And we ended up becoming very close,
Again, see,
very close. And I was over at his trailer a lot, and just a gentle giant. You know, we talk about everything from UFOs to the devil. You know, I mean,
Right.
it was, you know. He comes to the door in his tidy whities and a big mug of iced tea. He goes, "Come on in, young man." Yeah, sit down and watch TV. You know,
You never know.
you just don't.
You never know.
and so what about look at the chance, I'll say that Kimberly took when she approached me, because there was nobody there that was willing to do it. She wrote me a little note, you know, and she said, "You're on the right path." She says, "Continue there." Then she made an approach to me, and we talked about that and some other things. And I asked her if she'd be my sponsor. But now her sponsor, my grand sponsor, was Loopy. You see?
Oh, yeah.
And I got in this huge argument with Loopy. Very, very bad. And I had to make amends for that. Anyway, so that's how through those little three things, I asked Kimberly to be my sponsor. You know? And Kimberly actually went to her, I know we're not talking about sponsors, but went to her husband's seat and made sure that was okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it did that. You know?
Well, we have a song to listen to. Before we do that, though, I just want to announce that next week's show, Sandy is going to be sharing her personal story of experience, strength, and hope, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. And she's going, ah! So
And I'll be here to listen. That's going to be hard.
yeah, that will be hard.
Yeah.
So she's going to be showing her story, so you don't want to miss that. So we're going to close out with this song. This is by one of the trailblazers of recovery music. His name is Michael Purrington, and his band is The Messengers. This song is entitled Outside Issues. Check this.
Really?
Yeah, check this out.
The first time I went to a meeting, they said anything that ain't about drinking is an outside issue. It's an outside issue. Oh, it ain't in the groove and it ain't conference approved. I want to talk about dope, smoke and blow. They shook their heads and said, no, 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 that's an outside issue. Well, that's an outside issue. Man, it ain't in the groove if it ain't conference approved. Lost my job, I can't make my rent. They said, sorry, son, unemployment is an outside issue. It's an outside issue. Oh, it ain't in the groove if it ain't conference approved. My girl is gone, I got a broken heart. This blue mood turned me apart. It's an outside issue. It's an outside issue. And it ain't in the groove if it ain't conference approved. My work, my worries, my wicked wife, my lover, my lawyer, my whole life is an outside issue. It's an outside issue. It ain't in the groove if it ain't conference approved. It's an outside issue. Outside issue. It's an outside issue. Outside issue. I guess I better stick to staying dry.
Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty'man and the gang, and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty.